Think. A short story by Valerie Howard. Narrated by Mike Monster AI. Chapter 1. Nicole Murphy rubbed her temples in a circular motion and groaned before yanking open her purse and feeling around for her large bottle of aspirin. She popped 3 pills in her mouth, swallowed them with a swig of warm water from her coffee mug, and squeezed her eyes shut. 4 and 5-digit numbers from the profit and loss statement she'd been working on still danced behind her eyelids. Her stomach growled. It must be close to lunch. She opened her eyes to peer at the large clock above her office door. Instantly regretting her choice to stare at more numbers, she determined it was 5 minutes until 2. Jerry should arrive shortly with whatever lunch special he'd concocted especially for her. Nicole blew her dark bangs out of her eyes. She wasn't exactly looking forward to another grand production. She'd heard her fiancé's meal presentations too many times since she'd been hired as the financial manager of Rigatoni's, and the routine that used to be cute and endearing had grown obnoxious. A soft rap on the door interrupted her thoughts. "Special delivery for my baby doll," Jerry drawled as he poked his head of curly brown hair into the spacious office. She tried not to cringe. "When will you stop calling me that?" Cheesy pet names were for animals, not people. Not that she'd ever told Jerry her opinion on the matter. Her fiancé seemed to enjoy coming up with a new nickname every time he addressed her, and she didn't have the heart to tell him to stick to her first name. Besides, that silly habit of his couldn't last forever. Could it? "Hey, Jerry. What do we have today?" "Let's get this presentation over with." "This," Jerry said, setting a silver platter on the small round table in the corner of the room and removing the silver dome cover with flourish, "is my handmade whole wheat penne, cooked al dente, with a roasted tomato, basil, and garlic sauce. Complementing the pasta today, we have juicy turkey and carrot mini meatballs topped with shredded mozzarella and parmesan. Your meal includes a side of soft, buttery garlic bread with a crispy crust. And of course, for dessert, your favorite, chocolate peanut butter pie with a graham cracker crust, drizzled with salted caramel and chocolate shavings." Jerry punctuated each adjective with a hand motion, pronounced every Italian word with a thick accent, and bowed deeply as Nicole smiled and clapped, she hoped, not too lamely. "You've outdone yourself again. It looks lovely." "Thank you." She walked over to the table and sat as Jerry poured her a glass of sparkling water. He kissed the top of her head and waited for her to take a bite before he excused himself. Once she'd stuffed a forkful of food into her mouth, she donned her poker face. "Tastes like yesterday's pasta dish to me." Out loud, she said, "Yum." "Thanks." Jerry gave a satisfied nod and bowed again. "I must get back to the kitchen and start prepping for dinner. Full house tonight as usual. Arrivederci, my love." "Arrive, I mean, by Jerry. See you after dinner." She swallowed the lump of mush in her mouth and smiled. "He's still cute, even with all his quirks." "Love you." "Love you more," Jerry said as he exited her office and slid the door closed. Relaxing, she picked at the rest of her pasta and hoped she'd never have to tell Jerry the awkward truth. "I prefer Chef Boyardee." How she had successfully hidden her untrained taste buds from him for the 3 years they'd known each other was beyond her, but it was too late to broach the subject now. She couldn't bring herself to divulge her secret. Not with him reaching further and further for his dream of opening their own restaurant together soon after their honeymoon. "With your knack for numbers and my grandmother's recipes, we'll be unstoppable, babe." Nicole had nodded and tried to allow his enthusiasm to penetrate her soul. Her efforts proved useless. Now she glanced down at her full plate of gourmet pasta and meatballs and tried to ignore the knot in her gut. Finish eating or go back to crunching numbers? Neither option appealed to her. She blew out a frustrated breath and looked outside at the happy billboards greeting her from her second-story window. If only she had ignored everyone's advice as a college freshman and had gone on to do what she really wanted to do in life, maybe this dull pain wouldn't gnaw at her stomach every day. But she'd made her decisions, and it was too late to do anything about that now. From its place on her desk, her cell phone rang. Her best friend's name popped up on the screen. Elizabeth Bloomsbury. Preferring peace and quiet during her lunch hour, she almost didn't answer the phone. But the thought of dealing with Elizabeth after missing her call made her lunge for the cell at the last minute and sing a cheery hello into the speaker. Elizabeth didn't return the greeting, but rather squealed in delight and started talking at full speed. "I found the perfect dress, Nikki. You are going to fall in love, I know it." Nicole could visualize her friend's green eyes flashing with excitement, her fiery red hair bouncing up and down with her animated hand motions. Her entire scalp needed a deep tissue massage. She cradled the phone between her ear and shoulder and scraped her lukewarm penne off her plate and into the trash. Hopefully the custodian would take it out before Jerry was back up here and wondering where her appetite had gone. Perfect dress for what? Your wedding, silly. What do you think? Elizabeth sounded out of breath with excitement. I think it's my job to pick out your maid of honor dress, not yours. Nicole tried to relax her shoulders, but it proved difficult with her ever-tightening grip on her china plate. Oh. Well, I have several bridesmaid dresses I'm considering. I thought I showed them to you last week. She furrowed her brow and tried to stay positive. Wedding planning for a normal woman was hard enough, but with her mother and a high-strung maid of honor calling her every moment with a new idea, new update, new surprise. No. Not a bridesmaid dress, Nikki. Wedding dress. For you. I found it today, and it just screamed, "This is a Nicole Desiree Murphy dress if you've ever seen one. Buy me now or forever live in regret." And it was a discontinued style. Last one on the rack. So, of course, I checked the price first. I know you're ever conscious of your budget. It was a teensy bit over the price you had set, but I knew as soon as you saw it you'd flip if someone else got to it first, so I did what any best friend would do, and I bought it for you. Isn't that a relief? One more thing checked off our to-do list. Losing her grip on the plate, Nicole heard it hit the bottom of the trash can with a thud. Her shoulder twitched and almost let the cell phone fall in the basket as well. You picked out my wedding dress? My wedding dress? Without even consulting me? She sputtered, trying to find more words, but they couldn't weave their way past the temper tantrum thundering inside her head. You are the most selfish, crazy, insane person on this planet. How dare you? That was supposed to be my shopping trip. My choice. My day trying beautiful gowns one by one until I found the perfect one. Why do you always ruin everything? The coiled muscles in her neck screamed louder than her thoughts, and she regained her focus enough to realize Elizabeth was still rambling. And don't worry, it was exactly your size, and they can alter whatever you need done. It will definitely fit, so don't even worry that it was an all sales or final sort of deal. They'll tailor everything to your specifications. I even made an appointment for you at 9 o'clock on Saturday. Don't be late, or they'll charge you. What is wrong with you, Elizabeth? When she could finally breathe enough to speak, her voice sounded far away. How much was it? Elizabeth sighed like Nicole was being the unreasonable one. Well, remember, price doesn't matter much when it's the perfect dress. You only get married once, you know. In theory, anyway. Besides, like I said, all sales are final. I think I'm going to be sick. Nicole clenched her back teeth together. Elizabeth. Tell me how much the dress was. Honestly, Nikki, I'd think you'd want to know more about what it looks like than how much I put on your credit card. My what? Nicole stamped her foot and paced around her office. Was the air growing thin in here? You told me it was in your sock drawer for emergencies. Why did I ever give you that key to my apartment? But if you insist, I'll tell you the price. Elizabeth paused and Nicole thought the stars crowding her peripheral vision were about to overtake her entire line of sight. It was a tad bit over $1,000. With wobbling knees, she collapsed into her swiveling computer chair, breath coming in labored puffs. $1,000? Elizabeth! That's 3 times the amount I had budgeted. I know it was a little expensive, but I don't see why you can't splurge on your wedding, Nikki, honestly. You've always been so conservative. You need to let yourself live a little. Someday you'll thank me for the extra push. I'll text you the picture I took of the dress as soon as I hang up. Talk to you later. Ta-ta. With that, Elizabeth disconnected the call, and Nicole's cell phone chimed with a new text message. Dare I look? Curiosity won out over her fury, and she opened the picture. A white, puffy, Cinderella-style ball gown with long, lace sleeves stared back at her. Not even close. Nicole cradled her head in her hands and cried. Chapter 2. At 4:59, Nicole packed her briefcase and texted Jerry that she wasn't feeling well and wouldn't be able to meet up with him after dinner after all. She ignored every call and text she received from Elizabeth, hoping that somehow the spastic girl would get a clue that she wasn't on Nicole's good side. On the bus back to her apartment complex, she massaged her aching head and shoulders while rummaging through her purse for her aspirin bottle, only to come up empty-handed. Great. Just great. Must have left it at work. Precisely what I need today, a trip to the drugstore. Dragging her heavy feet, she stepped off the bus and walked half a block to the local pharmacy/convenience store combo. She slung open the glass door and marched directly to the aisle of painkillers located in the back corner of the store. As she scanned the shelves to compare prices and bottle sizes, a faint cough beside her ear made her jump. Didn't mean to frighten you, miss, said a small, older man with glasses, standing far too close for comfort. Nicole tried to wipe the annoyance off her face and took a step back to put some space between them. Not a problem. Have a nice day. As she grabbed a container off the shelf and turned to go, the short man swooped in front of her to block her exit. Rough day? He asked, indicating the bonus-sized bottle of maximum-strength ibuprofen she was clutching. Something like that. She pressed her lips together and crossed her arms. I'm sorry, can I help you with something? You picked the wrong person to mess with today, little man. Back off. The man smiled, showing 2 perfect rows of what Nicole suspected to be false teeth. No. But I think I can help you. I'm giving out free samples today. He reached over to a small table with a white tablecloth Nicole hadn't noticed before and grabbed a tiny blue vial of liquid. This, he said with a glimmer in his eye, is the most relaxing bubble bath formula on earth. Guaranteed to relieve stress with its patented chemical formula. Potent stuff, lasts a full 24 hours. You can take one if you'd like. Looks like you might need it. He pressed the glass bubble bath container into her hand and walked away. Embarrassed by her obvious irritation with a man who was only trying to earn a living, she stuffed the bubble bath bottle into her purse and hurried to the register to overpay for her medication. As soon as she was outside, she gulped down 4 pills and shuffled to her apartment building. By the time she arrived on the 5th floor, found her door key, flung off her heels, and collapsed onto the couch, her headache drummed a steady beat in her ears. And by the time she finished eating her microwave dinner, paying bills on the laptop, watching some reality television, and ignoring 5 calls and 10 text messages from Elizabeth, she had a full-blown migraine. Guess I could try a relaxing bath before bed. Creeping to her purse hanging in the closet, she felt around for the little blue bottle and squinted in the dim light of her apartment to read the minuscule print on the label. Miracle Bubbles Bath Solution. Guaranteed to expel stressful thoughts for 24 hours. Directions for use: apply 5 drops into running bathwater. Soak for up to 1 hour. Discontinue use if skin irritation becomes bothersome. May cause drowsiness and/or separation. Rolling her eyes, she tried to make sense out of the awkward wording. Probably some cheap, foreign-made stuff that will give me hives. Head pounding fiercely, she padded to the bathroom to start blasting bathwater. Although 5 drops didn't seem like enough to make one bubble, let alone a tubful, she obeyed the directions and left the room to retrieve her iPod. The calming scents of lavender and jasmine welcomed her when she returned, and millions of blue-tinted bubbles piled high on top of the steaming bathwater. The most potent bubble bath on earth. Guess he knew what he was talking about. She turned the water off, undressed, and plunged into the tub. After soaking for 2 minutes, her monumental headache had dissipated and all of her muscles loosened. I have got to buy myself a truckload of this stuff. Whatever it costs, it's worth every penny. She closed her eyes and allowed the stress and worries of the day to fall away from her mind. At 10 o'clock, after her hour of soaking was up, she forced herself to get out of the tub and towel off. She almost didn't have the energy to slip into a cotton t-shirt and a pair of pajama pants before plunking down on top of her comforter and falling into a deep, comatose slumber. Chapter 3. The sound of her blaring alarm clock made Nicole bolt upright in bed. Quieting the irritating buzz, she slid her feet to the floor. As she sat on the edge of the bed, she lifted her arms up and out for a good stretch, not a kink or stiff joint to be found. She was really going to need to find a way to invest in this bubble bath company. She bounded out of bed, skipped the routine cup of coffee, and chopped apples, bananas, and strawberries to make herself a fruit salad for breakfast. Humming a happy tune, she got ready for work feeling refreshed and rejuvenated. I'm taking a bubble bath every night now. I've never been such a morning person. She grabbed her purse, phone, and keys and glanced at her watch while heading out the door. Wow, 20 minutes early. I think I'll walk to that bus stop on Elm today. As she closed the door behind her, she noticed her grouchy across the hall neighbor standing in the hallway wearing a green facial mask, curlers, and bathrobe, bending down to pick up the newspaper on her welcome mat. Goodness, what a scary sight. The woman whipped her head up to scowl at Nicole, who smiled kindly and waved. Good morning, Mrs. Thorne. Her grumpy neighbor glared at her. Wow, you're in a mood. She plastered a smile on her face while she locked her door and made sure it was secure. Have a nice day. Crazy lady. Nicole waved again, ignoring her neighbor's rude facial expressions and walked toward the elevator. She heard the woman's door slam shut behind her as the automatic doors of the elevators opened. She shuddered. Okay, what's up with you today? An elderly gentleman in a suit stepped out of the elevator, tipped his hat, and grinned at Nicole. The usual, as usual. She raised her eyebrows, but didn't respond to his odd comment. What is wrong with everyone? The elevator deposited her into the lobby, and the long, brisk walk to the distant bus stop helped her clear her head and solidify a plan to get out of paying for the wedding dress Elizabeth had bought for her. I'll just have to challenge the payment on my credit card. I'll tell them my card was stolen and ask that all purchases for the last 2 days be dismissed. They can do that, can't they? Technically, it's true. She took it without asking and charged over $3,000 to it in 1 day. They'll believe me. Then I'll have to convince the bridal shop that they won't get a penny from me if they think they can let someone else use my credit card and buy my dress for me. They'll be sympathetic, right? I mean, they've dealt with customers harder to please than me, right? They must know how to handle this type of situation. It's going to be okay. Passengers started boarding the bus as soon as she stepped around the corner. She hurried to get on and pay. During the ride, she rehearsed in her mind the pleading conversation she'd have with the bridal shop owner. The other passengers on the bus seemed to be in strange form along with her neighbors today. Some gave her evil looks. Others looked away as soon as she made eye contact and snickered. Nicole pulled her coat tighter around her body and checked her teeth for bits of food with her tongue. Has the world gone nuts? After the bus ride, she walked further down the street to the restaurant. As she opened the glass doors and walked into the lobby, she breathed a big sigh. The credit card company and the bridal shop would be nothing compared to dealing with Elizabeth. Why did she always let that girl push her around so much? First, Elizabeth convinced her to go to state instead of her first-choice college, then she talked Nicole into switching majors to be in finance instead of teaching. Even the apartment building she lived in was because Elizabeth scoped it out first and recommended she grab it up. And Jerry, well, Elizabeth had found him on an online dating website and encouraged Nicole to make the first move. He's perfect for you, Nikki. Believe me, I'm never wrong about this sort of thing. Then Jerry had pulled some strings to get her hired as the financial manager of the restaurant. Just so you can learn the ropes until we can start our own place. Why did she let everyone talk her into these sorts of things? Why did she refuse to speak up for herself and do her own thing every once in a while? She knew the answer. Mother. Just then, Mike, the bartender, popped his head up from behind the bar where he was taking inventory. Rough day? Stopping dead in her tracks, she let out a slow breath. Is it that obvious? It wouldn't be if you didn't come in here muttering up a storm. She squeezed her eyes shut. Sorry, I didn't realize I was that upset. Didn't mean to bother you, Mike. Mike's eyes twinkled. No bother. So, what did you want to go to school for? A blush crept up her neck. Oh, you heard all that? Hard not to. You were kind of loud. The temperature of the room increased. Wow, I'm sorry. That's embarrassing. Well, I actually wanted to go for something art-related, but my mother wouldn't hear of it? So you switched to teaching to satisfy her, and finance to satisfy your friend. Mike finished her sentence. At her jaw drop, he winked. I can put 2 and 2 together. Smart, charming, and a good listener. You've got a lucky wife there, Mike. Mike laughed. Thanks for the pep talk. I gotta get busy before the big boss comes around and catches me gossiping when I should be getting my order ready. Nicole shook her head and made sure not to mutter anything else while she took the stairs to her office. Shutting the door, she plopped into her computer chair to look at her schedule for the day. Another day of swimming in a bottomless pool of numbers. Someone save me. Her online schedule told her she had an appointment with the tax auditor at 10 o'clock. Wonderful. Having someone look over her shoulder and check her work already annoyed her tremendously, but it was doubly excruciating when the auditor was the wiry Joe Baldwin who smelled of dust and leather and insisted that everyone call him Mr. Baldwin. I'm not in the mood to deal with his know-it-all attitude today. She closed her eyes, expecting her usual shoulder back head pain to overtake her. It didn't, so she got to work. At 15 minutes to 10, there was a sharp knock on her door. Miss Montgomery. Nice to see you again. Mr. Baldwin let himself into her office and stood beside her chair, obviously waiting for her to move so he could make use of the only comfortable seat in the space. The name's Murphy. I swear you do that on purpose. And you could have waited for an invitation into my office before barging in. He coughed a strangled cough and took a step back. Instead of elbowing him out of her personal bubble, she pressed her lips together. "Would you like to sit down, Mr. Baldwin?" At his curt nod, she vacated her desk and brought a stack of papers over to her filing cabinet. "Miss Murphy, would you mind getting me a cup of coffee?" "Get it yourself, Mr. Baldman. I'm not your secretary." She turned around and opened her mouth to answer in the affirmative, but when she saw Mr. Baldwin's red face, she forgot what she was about to say. "What's the matter? Are you all right?" "Miss Murphy, if we have to work together on this project, I'm going to need you to show me some respect. My name is Baldwin, not Baldman, and I don't see why you can't get me a cup of coffee when you are standing right next to the pot." Nicole's blood froze. Time stood still. "Miss Murphy." It wasn't possible. But she had to test it to be sure. "What?" "I'd like an apology for that inexcusable backlash." "I'm sorry, Mr. Baldwin. I don't know what got into me." "That's better. Now, cream and 2 sugars, if you please." He waved his hand dismissively. "It's going to be another long morning, I can tell already." Mr. Baldwin turned his attention to his work. Hands trembling, Nicole tried to focus on preparing the coffee as he requested. After she brought the steaming cup of liquid over to her desk, she excused herself to go to the ladies' room and bustled down the hallway as quickly as she could. Once inside the bathroom, she made sure all the stalls were empty, and she locked the door to the restroom. "This can't be happening. This can't happen. This is impossible." But as she thought the words, she caught sight of her reflection in the mirror. Her lips were moving of their own accord, and the sound of her voice reverberated through the empty room. "How?" she asked her dazed reflection. "How did this happen? What changed? Who did this to me?" Mentally, and out loud, Nicole ran through a list of everything she had eaten, drank, or applied to her body the day before. Her thoughts echoed off the bathroom walls. The only thing I'd never done before was, oh, no. The bubble bath. What had the back of the bottle said? "Guaranteed to expel stressful thoughts for 24 hours. A tingling sensation started in her fingertips and spread rapid fire throughout her entire body. She fought to breathe, fought the surge of oncoming panic, fought the urge to run all the way home and hide under her covers until she could wake up from this nightmare. "I'm in so much trouble," she whispered, scrambling to remember exactly what her grumpy neighbor, the man in the elevator, and everyone on the bus must have overheard her thinking. The piercing ring of her cell phone tore through the air. Mindlessly, Nicole answered it. "Hello? Nikki, what on earth is going on with you? I've been calling and texting since yesterday, and you still haven't bothered to respond. Is this any way to treat your best friend?" Oh, snap. What? You thought I wouldn't notice? What's gotten into you? You're never this irresponsible. I'd think you'd have a little more time for me since I am the one who's practically planning your entire wedding for you and completely ruining the entire thing." Elizabeth stopped talking. Nicole's eyes widened, and she slapped her hand over eyes. "Did I think that out loud?" "Yes, you thought that out loud." "What do you mean, ruining it?" "I'm the one doing everything for you so you don't have to lift a finger or be stressed out, and this is the thanks I get?" Nicole couldn't tell if she was thinking, talking, or something in between, but something inside her let go. She couldn't have stopped herself from babbling if she wanted to. "Some best friend you are. You're not doing this for me. You don't even know me. First it was the venue. I never asked you to put a non-refundable deposit down on a wedding venue. I wanted to get married in my church, for crying out loud, not a lousy field. What if it rains, huh? You ever think about that? You wedding hijacker? We're all going to be soggy and miserable. And I wanted to go shopping for my own wedding dress. Thank you very much. Is that too much to ask? Can't I even plan my own wedding like every other bride in the entire universe gets to do? You're ruining everything, just like you ruined my entire college experience, just like you ruined my chance to be on the honor roll in 6th grade because you copied my paper and the teacher thought I cheated off of you. Why don't you just leave well enough alone before you ruin my entire life? I never want to speak to you again, Elizabeth Bloomsbury. Never! She tightened her grip on the phone. And my name is not Nikki. It's Nicole, okay? Nicole, Nicole. Elizabeth was silent for a moment, while Nicole sucked in the stale bathroom air with ragged, shallow breaths. Well, if that's the way you feel about me, Nicole, then goodbye. Regret instantly poured into Nicole's heart. Wait, Elizabeth, click. She let out a guttural scream, tempted to throw her cell to the floor and smash it into a million pieces. Why had she even answered Elizabeth's call? Like she'd be able to keep every thought from escaping into the phone lines. This was getting ridiculous. Something needed to be done, and fast. Straightening her spine, she smoothed out her blouse and glared at her frizzy brown hair in the mirror. That's it. I'm going back to that drugstore and finding that stupid little old man. He'd better have an antidote for this ridiculous bath solution, because if he doesn't, I might end up ruining my relationship with everyone I know. A splash of cold water on her face steadied her nerves enough to walk back to her office and grab her coat and purse. Where are you going? Mr. Baldwin asked. I'm taking my lunch. You don't need me in here while you work, she growled. But it's only 10:30. Ignoring the stuck-up man with the comb-over, she shuffled down through the restaurant to hail the first cab she spotted. Chapter 4. Nicole fidgeted the entire way to the drugstore, trying unsuccessfully to put her mind on ice so she wouldn't have any awkward conversations with the cabbie. By the time she had gotten her 7th strange glance from the driver, they had reached their destination. $15. Highway robbery. She handed over her credit card. Hey, I got 6 kids at home. Cut me some slack here, lady. Sorry. Bolting from the cab, she ran into the store. She made a beeline to the back corner near the painkillers and searched high and low for any sign of the man with the free samples. Not finding any trace of the bubble bath setup, she hurried to the register to talk to the curly-haired, middle-aged woman who had rung up her order of pain pills last night. Excuse me, would you happen to have any idea how I could get in contact with that man who was handing out free samples of bubble bath yesterday? The woman gave her an odd look, narrowing her eyes. What man? All the running had left Nicole out of breath. That short, older gentleman. In the back corner. Over there. Last night. She gulped in a deep breath. Had a table displaying some bubble bath. He gave me a free sample. And I'd like to wring his scrawny little. Have a chat with him. Curly Top still looked confused. I don't know what you're talking about, miss. No one has ever been in here giving out free samples. Not last night. Not ever. Nicole tensed. What? How can that be? I spoke to him. He was over there. She waved her hand in the direction she'd just come from. The woman scratched her head and squinted. You know what? I think I might have seen that man you're talking about, now that you mention it. He was lugging a rather large briefcase, and he was in here for quite a while. I thought it was odd that he dawdled so long and didn't end up buying anything. Leaning closer, Nicole allowed herself to hope for a miracle. Did you see which way he went when he left? When the woman pointed the way, Nicole dashed out to the parking lot, scouring the area for any clue of where the man might have disappeared to. She searched the bushes, the sidewalk, and the grass. When she was about to give up and hail another cab, she spotted a small, white business card face down in the middle of a parking space. Gotcha. She picked up the card, turned it over, and wiped the dirt away with her fingers. Tiny, embossed metallic letters spelled out, Better Life Solutions. Peter L. Clemens, salesman. 1-800-555-6344. Better Life? Yeah, right. She hurriedly dug out her cell phone and dialed the toll-free number. An automatic voice greeted her. Hello, you have reached Better Life Solutions. We are unable to come to the phone right now. She punched the end call button, stomped her foot, and let out a frustrated screech. Are you kidding me? She glanced at her watch. Almost 11:30. Okay, she finished her bath at 10 o'clock last night. If the printing on the bubble baths label was accurate, she only had to deal with this ridiculous situation for another 10.5 hours before the effects of the potion wore off. The auditor should vacate her office soon, but that left Jerry to deal with at lunchtime. How would she sit through another meal presentation and fake her way through her first tasteless bite when her fiancé could hear every thought coming out of her head? She gripped her cell phone again and sent a text. Can't do lunch today. I'll explain later. She blew a stray strand of hair out of her eyes. That should buy me some time. After hailing another cab, she asked the driver to hurry. She had a crazy salesman to track down. You have a wonderful singing voice, ma'am, the cabbie said with a toothless grin. Nicole paid her fare and stepped out of the car, cheeks burning. Oh. Thank you. How could she help but think the lyrics when her favorite song came on the radio? At least it had spared her any unusual discussions about bubble baths and wedding dresses. She flung the back door of the taxi shut and breezed past the lunch crowd to get into her office. Pleased to see Mr. Baldwin had already vacated, she plumped down in front of her computer and pulled out the smudged business card. Time to see who I've gotten involved with here. After searching the internet for Better Life Solutions, she found nothing but a static web page showing a smiling model holding a bottle of familiar-looking bubble bath. Once she concluded the page offered no new information, her office phone rang. She hesitated. Should she answer it? The phone rang again. I can cover up the mouthpiece if I feel a traitorous thought coming on. I can hide all day. I can do this. Hello? Her hand hovered near her chin in case she needed to be rescued from her thoughts. Hi, sugar pie. Jerry's voice hollered over clattering pots and pans in the background. I'm swamped now, but I had a thought. Since we can't do lunch today, how about a night on the town? I have a rare dinner shift off tonight, so we can go eat at Pizzazz, that new ritzy place downtown. What do you think? Her hand didn't have time to cover the mouthpiece before she rolled her eyes. Yeah, right, sounds perfect. That's exactly what I need today. Fine dining with a master chef. Okay, great. I'll let you know when I get out of here, and we can go. But the line went dead. She dropped her head to her desk, trying not to sob. I need to find this Peter Clemens guy and get back to normal before dinner. Since the internet search had proven fruitless, she dialed the toll-free number on her office phone again, hoping this time a live person would answer.
Hello, you have reached Better Life Solutions. We are unable to come to the phone right now. Please choose from the options listed, so we may better assist you.
She perked up in her chair and scooted closer to her desk. Maybe this recorded voice could provide some insight after all.
For job opportunities, press 1. For billing, press 2. If you are a customer, press 3. To report a problem, press 4. If you know your party's extension, please dial it now.
3 or 4. She decided on 4 and jammed the key so hard her finger hurt.
Thank you. If you are having an allergic reaction to any of our products, please hang up and dial 911. If this is not an emergency, please remember that the effects of our solutions will wear off after a full 24 hours if the directions were followed. If you are experiencing a problem you would like to report, please stay on the line to leave a message. Our next representative will return your call in the order in which it was received. Thank you, and have a better life.
Slamming the phone down and wringing her hands together, she started mumbling. Expel stressful thoughts, irritation of kin, may cause separation. Those weren't some badly translated phrases from another language. They were precise explanations of the price she'd have to pay for 1 hour of relaxing in the tub. Nicole chewed on her bottom lip as she drummed her fingers on her desk. The good news was, she'd followed the directions on the back of the bottle, meaning that all of this would be over by bedtime tonight. The bad news was, she'd already lost her best friend. And she feared that by the end of dinner, her fiancé would disappear as well. Chapter 5. Nicole tried to focus on getting something accomplished at the office by barricading her door and taping a scrawled note on the outside explaining she was in the middle of something important and wasn't to be bothered until the next morning. She resolved not to answer any more phone calls or text messages, so she powered off her cell and shut off the ringer on her desk phone. Her thoughts wandered constantly as dinner approached. How was her relationship with Jerry going to survive her candid thoughts about every bite she took and every pet name Jerry called her? She grabbed a stack of sticky notes and wrote positive thoughts on each one. "This is delicious and not as good as your cooking, of course," and popped the pad of paper into her purse. Maybe she could manipulate the audible thoughts for an hour and drown out the rest with the restaurant's music, chatter, and multiple bathroom breaks. After the most unproductive afternoon she had in the history of her employment, she slipped out of her office early and headed for the stairs, only to run smack into the restaurant owner on his way up. "Please, no. Nicole." Mr. Thompson looked concerned as he peered over his glasses and raked his fingers through his salt and pepper hair. "I wanted to have a little chat with you before you leave. It's about the audit." "Sure, Mr. Thompson. It's going well. I think he'll be finished up in a week or 2. Our records are spotless and organized." She forced a smile and kept walking down the stairs, intending to blabber on until she could pass her boss and make a smooth exit. "Nothing much to report." Mr. Thompson put his hand out to stop her from going past him. "That's not what I heard this morning." Allowing herself an inward groan, she stiffened when she heard her voice echo through the hollow stairway. "Is there something you need to tell me about your meeting with Mr. Baldwin today?" His steely eyes were harsh. "Besides the fact that he's an arrogant jerk and I can't stand being in the same room with him?" Her eyes widened, and her palms became slick with sweat. "Is that why you left the building at 10:30 and didn't return for over an hour?" "Nicole, I expect the financial manager of my restaurant to be able to deal with difficult people from the IRS without storming off and going AWOL for as long as they please. I hired you with that expectation, even though I realized you were young and inexperienced. I'm very concerned about this juvenile attitude you're displaying with this assignment." Nicole lowered her head and opened her mouth, about to explain that she was having a bad day, and she'd try harder next time, when her employer asked a third question. "You do want this job, don't you?" Memories of every headache, every double-checked calculation, every input, output, and data entry task she'd ever undertaken in the past year zipped through her mind. All the bad days, all the worst days, all the frustration, the turmoil, the pain, and annoyance at every spreadsheet she ever had to complete rushed in and overtook her senses. She opened her mouth to find a tactful answer to save her job, but the look on Mr. Thompson's face said it all. It was too late. Disappointment seeped from Mr. Thompson's gray eyes. Then go clean out your desk, Nicole. I need someone who's 100% on board. Mr. Thompson turned and walked down the staircase without looking back. She stood and stared after him for a few minutes, her heart dropping into the pit of her stomach. What had she said? She turned around and stomped back up the stairs to pack her belongings. Taking one last look at her bare office, she shook her head. Good riddance. Chapter 6. Taking the bus home had been a mistake. Now everyone at her usual bus stop knew of her employment status, how much she hated math, how much of a jerk Mr. Baldwin was for reporting her to her boss, and how she must be a crazy lady for airing her problems out loud for complete strangers to hear. When she finally dragged her body into her apartment and closed the door, she slammed her box of belongings on the counter, flung her purse on the floor, and dropped like a sack of potatoes face first on the couch. This is why I hold my tongue. This is why I keep quiet. This is the exact reason why I don't speak my mind and tell people what my real opinions are. No one really wants the truth. They just want to be placated. They just want to hear what they want to hear. Look where one day of speaking my mind has gotten me. I've isolated myself from my neighbor, lost my job, lost my sanity, lost my best friend. After today, I'm never telling anyone what I really think ever again. I'll go back to being plain old, yes-girl Nicole who plays along and makes everyone else happy. She rolled onto her back and closed her eyes against the world. Within minutes, she fell fast asleep. Nicole woke to the shrill ringing of her apartment's landline. She stumbled into the kitchen to answer it and stop the noise from drilling down her spine again. Hello? Honey cakes, it's me. I've been trying to call your cell, but it keeps going directly to voicemail. Are you ready for me to pick you up for dinner? No. What time is it? She looked at the clock. 6:14, how had she slept that long? You're not ready yet? I'm glad you got a nap in at least. Why don't I meet you there at 7 o'clock, okay? I've got errands to run in town anyway. The reservation is under Klein Murphy if you get there first. See you in less than an hour, love bug. Bye. Bye, she whispered, returning the phone to the receiver with clenched fists. Why me? Numbly, she changed into a short red dress, reapplied her makeup, styled her hair, and transferred her purse's contents into a sequined black clutch, careful to remember the notepad she'd prepared earlier. She flipped through the yellow papers. I love your eyes. Only 3 months until the big day. I need to go freshen up. I got fired today. No. That was not a can of worms she wanted to open at dinner tonight. Jerry's dream of owning his own restaurant would be dashed if he didn't have a good partner to deal with the financial side of things. He was too much of a gentleman to ask her to commit to that if he knew she hated it. She'd have to avoid any job-related chit-chat until she was back to being herself again. After opening her front door and peering down the hallway to make sure the coast was clear, she took the 5 flights of stairs down to the lobby to avoid anyone who might be lurking in the elevator. When she finally got to the sidewalk without incident, she wished she had prepared a notepad of things to think in the backseat of her cab ride to the restaurant. As it happened, though, her cabbie was a talkative older woman who didn't pause to let her get a word or thought in edgewise. Nicole smiled with relief, enjoying the experience of listening to someone else's opinions for a change. When they reached Pizzazz, she paid the woman, stepped out of the cab, and entered the restaurant, disappointed to hear how quiet and subdued the atmosphere was. The hostess led her to a table where Jerry was waiting. Hi there, pumpkin. Jerry stood politely and pulled a seat out for her. Please don't. she thought, instinctively responding to the nickname. Jerry misunderstood. Hey, I'm not going to sit here like some schlub and not treat my lady like a lady in the nicest place we've ever eaten. So you're going to have to get used to being treated like a princess tonight, princess. She produced a tight smile and loosened her death grip on her clutch so she could open it and peer at her sticky notes. Okay, but just for tonight. I already ordered some appetizer samples I wanted us to try. Might give us some ideas for our future restaurant. He wiggled his eyebrows. As if on cue, a waiter brought 3 plates full of different delicacies. Kale wrapped in seaweed, almond-crusted shrimp, spicy sushi, salmon cakes. Oh no. Not seafood. I thought you liked seafood, Jerry said, wrinkling his nose. You always say my seafood dishes are amazing. Scrounging around in her clutch for an appropriate written response, she tried to turn her mind off, but as she was searching, her mind refused to cooperate. So I say. Jerry leaned backwards as if he'd been slapped. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing, she replied in a hurry, still searching for a yellow slip of paper to rescue her. Well, do you like my seafood, or don't you? Frustration was replacing the confusion on Jerry's face. I don't like any of your food. With a foot stomp and a shake of the head, she tried to collect herself. I mean, I'm sorry. I'm just not a food person. Wow. Great job, Nicole. Not a food person? What are you talking about? Jerry's face turned pink. I mean, I just. Look, Jerry, I'm sorry, I should have told you this forever ago, but you might as well know now. I can't taste food like you do. I can't tell the difference between your chicken parmesan and the chicken nuggets in my freezer. His face contorted. So you're saying I'm a bad chef? He threw his napkin onto his plate. I'll have you know, I've won multiple awards for. Just stop talking and listen for once, Captain Nickname. Oh, so you don't like my nicknames either? Jerry looked like he was about to get up and storm out of the restaurant. Heads turned toward their table. Of course not, it's humiliating. I'm not a puppy. I mean, it's a little much sometimes, yes. I prefer to be called Nicole, but it's not a big deal. Her fiancé's teeth were clenched now, and he was seething. His voice rose to an uncomfortable level. More customers glanced their way. Not a big deal? We're supposed to be getting married in 3 months, and apparently I don't even know you. Jerry narrowed his eyes, looking suspicious. What else don't I know about you? What else have you been keeping from me? She cringed as the word flowed freely from her mind and out her mouth. Everything. Jerry rolled his eyes and let out an exasperated breath. What about that ring I gave you? No, don't. Please. But Jerry was on a roll. When I put it on your finger, you said it was the most exquisite thing you'd ever seen. Did you mean that? What do you really think of it? The 7 diamonds set in a heart shape in a thick platinum band stared up at her. She tried hard to have a blank mind, to think nothing at all, to never let on that. It's gaudy and overdone. Like you thought my love could be bought. Jerry pushed back his chair and raised his voice another decibel. And what do you think of me? Of us? Do you even want to get married? He was making a scene. A waiter headed their way. We're completely incompatible. She reached her hand toward him. But I do like you, Jerry. I do. You're a good guy and everything, it's just, the words to explain escaped her. Please, if you give me another chance, let's start over. I feel terrible about all this, really, I do. If you just take time to get to know the real me instead of the me you assumed me to be. Am I making any sense at all anymore? Jerry stood silently, threw down $100 bill and held out his hand. I don't think I want to get to know the real you, Nicole. My gaudy overdone ring, if you please. The fire in his eyes told her not to argue, and everyone in the building was staring at them. She slipped the ring off her finger and dropped it into his outstretched palm. Jerry strode outside. A few moments later, when she was sure he was far gone, Nicole followed suit. A walk in the cool, night air might clear her head and help her process what had gone wrong at dinner, so she headed in the opposite direction Jerry had gone. Can't blame him for getting angry with me. Should have told him a long time ago how I really felt. Now I've ruined everything. The last thing I wanted to do was break his heart. How awful am I? She wandered through the arts district, buzzing with happy people enjoying a fun night full of friends, food, and laughter. The happy sounds rattled around in her heart, reminding her how hollow her life had become in a single day. No job. No best friend. No fiancé. And no wedding. The whole dress incident seemed like such a small problem now. Why didn't I just handle that better? Now I have no one to talk to when I need someone the most. As much as it bothered her that she had hurt Jerry, she knew deep down that they would both be better off without each other. But Elizabeth had been her best friend since kindergarten. Who had been there by her side, skipping school and watching soap operas in her parents' bedroom after Nicole had her wisdom teeth out. And who had been a loyal defender during 5th grade when Nicole had been cursed with glasses and braces, while growing taller than every boy in class. Sure, Elizabeth could be pushy and overbearing at times, but that was because she got excited and wanted what was best for her friend at any cost. Nicole sighed and let a tear escape her lashes. She needed to make things right tomorrow, or nothing would ever be the same again. As she neared a greasy spoon diner on 3rd Street, her stomach growled. Might as well get dinner. She shivered. At least it looks empty in there. After pulling open the door, she ordered a cheeseburger, fries, and a chocolate milkshake, relieved that she'd never have to tell Jerry about enjoying this run-of-the-mill meal. She sat in a booth eating and staring blankly at the entrance for a long time, watching people come and go through the squeaky door with a tinny silver bell. A little overdressed for a diner, aren't we? A dark-haired, blue-eyed man wearing jeans and a t-shirt stepped over to her table with his order. Hi, I'm Max. May I sit down? Nicole scooted back in her booth seat. A little forward, aren't we? The man laughed. I could say the same about you. Goosebumps prickled her skin at the sound of his smooth, deep voice. What do you mean? As soon as I walked in here, you said, "Hello, handsome." I did? Her cheeks grew warm, and she glanced at her hands before she could force herself to respond. Must have slipped out. But one glimpse at his toned arms told her that her first instinct had been correct. She bit her lip and the rosy hue of her cheeks deepened as she articulated that point audibly as well. His eyes smiled and the corner of his mouth turned up as he sipped his large soda and slid in the seat across the table. Having a bad day? How many people had asked her that lately? She shrugged. Only the worst day of my entire existence. No biggie. Want to talk about it? I'm a good listener. I actually lead an AA group at my church back home. Just start with hello, my name is. He drew out the last word and held out his outstretched palm as if waiting for her to fill in the blank. Nicole. And I don't think I can stop myself from talking about it. She confessed everything over their burgers and fries. What she didn't say intentionally, she said accidentally. Max got a front row seat to the events that transpired since that morning and the emotional devastation that went with them. It was refreshing, exhilarating to be so open, honest, so brutal. She didn't hold anything back. She told him things she'd never told anyone before. About how her passion was drawing and illustration, but her mother never approved and threatened to stop speaking to her if she went to college for such nonsense. She told him how sometimes she found it easier to be walked on than to cause controversy and stress in the family, so she'd adjusted her actions, words, and feelings accordingly with everyone she met. She told him how she hated fancy food, hated finance, hated the beach, hated living in the city, and wanted more than anything to have a big home in the country with lots of space, maybe a dog or two, and a cozy room full of towers of blank sketch pads so she could be creative all day. Max simply sat and listened, throwing in a nod or word of affirmation every now and then. Finally, when she had reached the end of her monologue, he put his hand on top of hers, causing a soft, fuzzy spark of electricity to travel up her arm. "You know, Nicole? I like you. You're genuine. I've never met anyone so open before. I know you ended a long-term relationship today, and I'm not pressuring you or anything, but I'm going to give you my phone number if that's all right. When you're ready for another chat, give me a call. I'd love to listen to whatever you have to say." He pulled out a pen from his jeans and wrote 10 digits on her napkin. "If it's any incentive, I'm in the city this week visiting my sister and her husband. But my dog, Puddles, and I have our own house in the country." He winked as he slid the paper to her side of the booth. "Quite a picturesque view, too, if I do say so myself." "Puddles? You don't want to know." Max laughed, paid his bill at the counter, and waved goodbye. Nicole folded the napkin into her clutch and paid for her meal as well. Walking outside, she summoned a cab to take her home. Once inside the vehicle, she turned on her cell to try to focus her thoughts on something other than the cute guy in the diner. She didn't need to be spilling all those feelings into the driver's ear. For missed calls from Jerry before dinner, but none from Elizabeth. She must hate me. And who could blame her? What did I call her? A wedding hijacker? That's pretty harsh, the cabbie volunteered. I know. She rolled her eyes. She'd have to apologize to Elizabeth first thing in the morning. But when she arrived at her apartment, Elizabeth was waiting outside the door. Chapter 7. Nicole's mouth went dry. Not another incident. Not today. Elizabeth, she bit her lip. Elizabeth held up her hand. "Nicole, before you say anything, I wanted to tell you that your comments this morning really hurt me." Nicole took note of Elizabeth's puffy eyes. "I'm so sore." "No, wait. They hurt because they were true, Nicole. I know I talked you into going to state when you had a much better offer. I know I talked you into going into finance with me so I could cheat off your homework. You always were smarter than me. Even though I knew that's not what you wanted at all. I even talked you into dating Jerry in the first place because I thought he was irresistible. I shouldn't have bought that dress, and I'll pay for it, or figure out a way to return it myself, or whatever you want me to do. It was more for me than for you, I realized." Nicole unlocked her door and motioned Elizabeth inside. "You're forgiven, Elizabeth, for all of it. As long as you can forgive me too for what I said today. And the way I said it. I deserved it. All of it. Just promise me you'll tell me what you're really thinking from now on instead of keeping it all bottled up and exploding like that. I can handle it. And I'll listen. I promise. Deal." Nicole smiled, and Elizabeth hugged her. Her friend took a step back and grinned. "Maybe I'll save that dress for my own wedding if I ever find a guy like Jerry for myself." Nicole sank into the couch and patted the cushion next to her. "Well, Jerry's available. We broke up. At Elizabeth's look of shock, Nicole told her about the nightmare of a dinner and meeting Max at the diner. "Oh, Nicole, you should definitely call him right as soon as I feel ready." Nicole interrupted. Elizabeth gave her a sheepish grin. "Yes. As soon as you feel ready." Elizabeth stayed for 2 hours, and Nicole enjoyed talking to her more than she had in a long time. She spoke her mind instead of holding everything in, and Elizabeth seemed to appreciate her unique opinions and respect her for being true to herself. Nicole forgot all about the bubble bath and stuffing her feelings in their usual tiny compartment. When Elizabeth finally left, Nicole looked at the clock in the kitchen. 11:07, she rushed to the bathroom and gazed into the mirror. "Hi, I'm Nicole Murphy." "Nothing. Can you hear me?" Her mouth didn't move, and her voice didn't bounce off the bathroom walls. All was still. Relief bubbled up inside her and made her giggle. She was back to normal. And had been for at least an hour. Yawning, she returned to the living room and opened her clutch to retrieve the paper napkin. The numbers written on it gave her butterflies. It had been a bizarre day, but the people she really cared about were still in her life, and the things she should have let go of a long time ago had finally disappeared. She didn't need help speaking her mind anymore, that was a fact. Her conversation with Elizabeth without the aid of the solution had lasted for over an hour, and she hadn't held back once. Anxious anticipation danced in her stomach. This new outlook could afford her infinite new opportunities in the future. Maybe she'd call her mother in the morning and inform her that the wedding was off, her job had been terminated, and she was going back to school to study art. She was bound to get an earful, but she didn't care anymore. She didn't need anyone's approval to be Nicole anymore. But, first things first. She marched to the bathroom, grabbed the tiny bottle of bubble bath, and dumped it down the drain. This has been Think by Valerie Howard. Narrated by Mike Monster AI. Please be sure to subscribe to this channel for more videos.